5, 4.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to this segment of Latino Perspectives. I have two individuals that are on fire with me here tonight regarding our political situation, and we're focused in on Latinos, but we have to enlarge our vision to include the whole political process. So, Marty, why don't you go ahead and continue?
Well, we can't do nothing what happened 10 minutes ago. But we can't do anything what happened yesterday. We can do what happened in 26 minutes. And we can do something a whole lot about tomorrow. And even though we might not emphasize it, you just have to go to South Omaha. You just have to go to all these festivals. And I happen to take our beloved Governor Heinemann to September or Cinco de Mayo in Lincoln. Probably one of the very few times a governor ever attended a Cinco de Mayo.
Interesting.
I also took him to a Latino school in Lincoln, Nebraska, where it's 60%. And it was great. Because you had all these little brown kids, which took me back, and they kind of knew the governor's here. And just, they all went towards him. And they wanted pictures taken. It took everybody back, especially the governor. And when the governor was leaving, I said, Governor, these are our future. This is Nebraska's future. And we're all witnessing right before us where Nebraska's future is. From these grade school kids, and regardless of what you think of Governor Heinemann, what little brown kid would ever imagine, and you should have seen the joy of some of these new immigrants and refugees, my picture with the governor. There's something great about that American concept. But that's the future. Where do we go now with this demographic change, and people not voting, people fighting, people infighting, and all the things that unfortunately get in our way. In spite of this and whatever else is going on tomorrow, we need to be held accountable. We can't have it both ways.
Yeah, I agree
Right.
pretty much. 'Cause
But I think one of the things that you mentioned, though, too, is education. And I have to admit that the political process can be very confusing. I know when I first started to get more active, I didn't understand at some of the meetings what people were talking about. They were saying the SCC, the DTM, all these acronyms, and so I spoke up and I said, hey, I'm a new person, and if you want me to come back, you need to tell me what these different things mean, because I have no clue what's being said. Now, everybody is not as forward as I am, and I understand that. So I think that that's something that needs to change, is that those of us who are involved in the process need to be sensitive to the fact that when we bring new people in, we need to teach them. This is the language we're speaking here. Because every group, every workplace, every new situation has a certain language, a certain way of expressions that new people need to be taught. So, back to do what you were saying, Marty, yeah, that's part of what has to change. But people cannot get engaged if they're not familiar with what's going on. So I think one big step is for us to be aware of that and do some teaching and educating and encouraging and making people feel welcome.
Well, we need to take our voice, which is in 2014, in my perception, is still invisible. Regardless of Latinos have become the majority in the country, in Omaha, in Lincoln, we're still invisible. So my point is, we need to take our voice to that next level.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
and let me just interject, and this is when you should get out your pen, because I'm going to say some profound.
Oh,
things here.
okay. I better write it down.
Yeah, that what I've determined in my own mind, in my own life, is that I consider myself a full-fledged American. I'm a third generation on one side, second generation. My cousin Marty and I here were born and raised. We come from the sugar beet fields of western Nebraska. But I've always considered myself an American
Yes.
of Mexican descent. Okay. As such, as an American, I've always had this civic minded approach to life. And as I look at the future, as Marty's talking about, and I see the demographic changes, I'm concerned. And so therefore, I know we're talking about a segment of society, but I think society as a whole, our society will suffer if we don't take the demographics and push them through the process at the highest level possible so that they can take over the leadership. Now, we have 1.8 million people here in Nebraska, so to speak. Of those, 500,000 are considered senior citizens. We have about 200,000 quote-unquote Latinos, and black, with the black population, it's going to be into the 500,000. So you have this post-war generation like me and Marty, who are in the retirement stages, and we're going to be gone one way or the other.
That's right.
And so when you look at the demographics, and the majority, the 500,000, are basically Anglos, okay? And Anglos will not be here to run this society. And so we have a greater obligation, and what you have both become as leaders, not just in the Latino community, but for society as a whole. That's why they'll always listen to you wherever you go, because you have that natural leadership quality. And you're actually teaching people something that they would be embarrassed to say, I didn't really understand that. But you have to take that, you have to approach it from that position of if they could, they would help you. Sometimes they don't know how to help you. So you have to educate them, not just from a political perspective, but from a cultural perspective.
Absolutely.
But you got to be careful, because there's a harsh reality that even though what you're saying is true, in theory, we should have more. But we got to be careful. This is a red state. Cities and towns and Catholic churches are also red. That this will become an apartheid reality that looms if we don't get involved, Rinaldo.
Well, that's the whole.
Well,
that's my point.
That's what he's saying.
My point is that if you've drawn a conclusion, and you've said this is a red state, an apartheid state, and I'm saying that you have an obligation, I have an obligation to deal with that issue.
Exactly.
And that's what we're attempting to do. But we do it from a civic point of view, for our family, for our future, for our own well-being, from us being Americans.
Okay, I want to challenge that, Marty, the fact that you're saying this is a red state. I think where we're at right now with the voting blocks that we have, it certainly looks that way. But I think there's a whole lot of people in our society. Take, for example, single women who are not represented very well in the state. Take, for example, not only Latinos, but many, many other groups. People in poverty. There's a lot of disenfranchised individuals. If we were smart enough and capable enough to engage these individuals in the civic process, I don't think we'd be a red state for very long.
That may be true, but there's a statistic that you can't ignore. That there's over 500,000 registered Republicans and a little over 300,000 Democrats. So that just presents
Right.
a challenge even more.
But I look at it this way. If people really looked at how the different politicians stand on the issues and the promises that they're making, I don't think we would have a problem getting a lot more people to register to vote. So I mean, to me, that's where the power is. I'm thinking things like health care, Affordable Care Act, which a lot of people give it a different name, which I will not use. The expansion of Medicaid. Do you realize there were 57,000 Nebraskans who need health care, many of them children, and our legislature decided, well, no, that would cost too much money, even though for the first 3 years, federal dollars would be used. Those are dollars that we have paid in as taxpayers, and we're not getting any of that back. It's going to other states who have agreed to expand Medicaid. So I don't think that's a very wise
No, but that
monetary
that goes to
decision.
what Renault was saying
But-
about educating the masses about what
You
what
know
you
who's
just said.
educating the masses in Nebraska and what keeps it a red state? Certain TV stations. You know, so, and rhetoric and misperceptions that are told over and over again, and people begin to believe them.
Bingo, bingo. You hit it right on the old head. You struck the mallet.
Thank you.
No, but that's the
But that's-
beauty. No, you're right. You talk about oligarchies. We
Yes.
talk about corporate control.
Yes,
The beauty of this television program is the fact that we have no controls. And with the bandwidth that we're going to purchase, we're going to be able to go worldwide. Nobody can control what you're saying here. What you want, and if you can market this to the point where people, they're going to tune in every Tuesday night to see Marty and Martha.
well, they call this freedom of speech, right?
Right. No, but see, that's how you're.
Like, what's that?
This is the beauty. This is so powerful, Martha. It is. I mean, back in the days of the movement, you used to have people that would go out and buy these little printing presses to
Well,
get
that's
to get out
true.
well, to get out the message. See, because that's so critical to the movement, any kind of movement. And here you have technology, which Marty's talking about. You have Facebook. You have this. You have.
It's true,
You have
social
everything.
media.
So you got to know how to utilize it to its greatest extent.
You know,
The greatest extent
you are
possible.
exactly right, because you know, that was one of the things that sparked that whole Arab Spring, was social media.